Welcome back to the Gear Locker for this week's training talk. I'm Alan.
I'm Rosie.
And we're hardcore divers. And the topic for today is training beyond what would normally be considered recreational diving. And when I use that term, I'm not using it in a legal definition or in a legal sense.
Right.
I'm using that term as beyond what training you might receive to go look at pretty fish or to go look at a wreck or something like that.
Okay.
So it's beyond that. I know that I kind of get bored quick, so
Right.
looking at pretty fish doesn't really do it for me. I like to do it on occasion, but we kind of went beyond that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
There's a number of ways to do that in your dive agency. In our case, we decided to go beyond recreational diving by getting into public safety diving.
Mm-hmm.
And so this gave us some adventure. We're doing things that might be considered a little more risky, but we have really good training to mitigate that risk.
Right.
We're diving in blackout conditions, complete black water. We can't see our gauges in some cases, except with the Scuba Pro HUD. I really love that thing. I can see my numbers in the blackest black of water. But we're diving in black water. We're diving in potentially contaminated water.
Right.
So if we're recovering a body,
Right.
that body's beginning to break down, and we could have some biological issues that we might have to be careful about.
Diving in an area with hazards, such as
Yeah.
branches,
We call them
vehicles,
sweepers up here, so
yeah.
or a strainer.
Yeah.
So water can go through a tree laying over in the water, but anything solid can't, and it gets pushed up against there, and people can drown that way.
Right. And yeah, and it can be anything in the water. From, when we go down to get vehicles, we don't know what's down there with the vehicle, what has, in a river or a lake, what is next to the vehicle. Is there edges that you can get snagged on? Is there...
So like in some of our gravel pits, gravel pits, which is where we pull a lot of vehicles and unfortunately some people out, those places have been used as a construction debris dump site in some cases. So you're going down there could be rebar sticking up.
Yep.
You have to be careful. You have to kind of master your descent rate, your feeling, because you can't see. So it's really interesting training.
Right. And not being able to see, you use all of your other senses to feel, to know, that might be something dangerous if you can't see it. And so yeah, it can be dangerous. Things can get snagged. So you want to make sure that you're very trim in the water and that you don't have anything hanging off, because that's a potential, danger. So.
And there are things like that. There's on one body search I went on, we went in the lake and we were doing a circle search on the bottom on a sonar hit, and Scott swam into a giant culvert.
Right.
And didn't realize he was in a culvert for a minute and had to figure out how to back out of that situation. Blackout conditions, we couldn't see each other. Rope signals is all we had.
Yep.
We didn't just say, hey, let's go dive in a completely pitch black gravel pit and see if we can get ourselves in trouble. No,
Not fun.
we went to Patty's public safety diver course. So it was a course created by Mike Berry, and Mike Berry owns a company called UCI and Chattahoochee Scuba. And Mike created the outline, the very first that I'm aware of,
Right.
and certainly the only one in Patty at the time that dealt with certifying people to be public safety divers.
Right.
And he was a Virginia State Trooper. I think he still is.
Yeah, I think
so. He kind of wrote the book. In fact, he did write the book. It's called At the Water's Edge. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, very informative.
Yeah, him and a Canadian named Tether. His last name was Tether, but he was a Canadian mounted police, and they both wrote books, and they're fantastic, and they're a good tandem to use. Mike worked through Patty and their risk management team to get this approved, because there was a need for something like that. There's police and fire department teams that there was no certification for that stuff.
Exactly.
These guys were just going out there and throwing their lives on the line like they commonly do.
Yeah.
But in this case, there was no reason for that. So Mike created this program, and we took that course.
Yeah.
Before that, though, we took Patty's Self-Reliant Diver course.
Yep.
I realized as an instructor that all the dives I do, especially open water dives, I am the rescue. So I need to be able to rescue myself. So I took Patty's Self-Reliant Diver course, and it was fantastic. It taught me more about redundancies, how to handle those situations by myself, and mitigate the problems that are caused by using redundancy to do that. So 2 cutting devices, one here, one down here.
Right.
A small pony bottle, small cylinder of air that I could use if I had a problem with one of my air supplying devices.
Well, and another good thing about being self-reliant is that a lot of times when we've dove before, something will happen, we'll get separated for a number of reasons. Some of it's a distraction, some of it's because, you just, as you're diving, you get separated, and so it's really good to know.
But you should. Your instructor will say, "Where's your buddy?
Right.
Where's your buddy?"
You shouldn't, but stuff happens.
But it happens.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it's good to have, that backup information, that backup knowledge that you can take care of yourself to a point,
Right.
Until you find your buddy or
And I actually think that was a great precursor to the public safety diver course.
Right.
Because in public
so
safety diver, now you're thinking about redundant air. You might have an air switch in your chest where, okay, I for some reason I wasn't paying attention, whatever, I need to switch to my backup, and you can make that switch.
Yeah.
There's redundancies built into what you're doing. So it was a perfect stepping stone rather to public safety diving. So I was glad that we did that.
Right.
But those are some things when you start feeling you need a little more adventure, or your interest in diving may be waning a bit. Maybe you only use it when you go on vacation once every 3 or 4 years, and you'd like to dive more closer to home, maybe help your community. And that's what public safety diving can do for you. We also got certified outside the organization from UCI to do skills like vehicle recoveries with lift bags, to recover bodies, to recover evidence, to use a metal detector. All of these things we learned and got certified by UCI. That's a good example of maybe, in our case, we were able to tandem, right? But you might have to go outside your training agency if your training agency doesn't have a program for what you want to do.
Right.
Ours was public safety diving. Oh my gosh, UCI, Master UCI. We just finished up a course with UFEF, which is Underwater Forensics Education Foundation, and Tim Andros there and James taught us this 8-hour class on how to not violate people's rights when you're diving, because now you're an extension of the police if they call you to assist with a case that's gone beyond the water's edge. And it was fantastic.
It was.
And then his forensic portion of the class was excellent. I mean, to be able to look at a body, look at the marks on the body, and determine what those marks mean. And
learn how the body slowly, what happens in the water, what happens in the right temperature of water, because colder water does different things. And so it was super interesting
how to determine maybe if someone was deceased when they went into the water. Maybe it's a body dump, but there's clue. And anyway, you can tell I really get into this, so we could get sidetracked if we don't stay focused. So what's another, let's think, so another interagency thing that I can think of is I decided to be an instructor. Now you're going from a recreational diver, if you're going for dive master or instructor, you're going from a recreational diver to a professional diver. And I can tell you right now, my IDC, my PADI IDC with Kelly Rockwood as our IDC instructor, and Barry Dunford as my instructor examiner, phenomenal. My diving skills went from here to here. Like in one 2-week course, it jumped that far. So that's another interagency way you can take your diving beyond what's typically considered recreational. And remember, that's not a legal definition. What's another? So what if we have to go outside of our agency? We went to UFEF for our certifications for forensics. What's another one you can think of?
You could do the AAUS, which is the scientific diving at the universities.
Okay, yeah.
And so, that's really an interesting thing for me. I really find it interesting because you're doing something. And so we get called, you
have a purpose, right?
Yeah.
We're diving with a purpose.
Right.
So that's the motto of hardcore divers, diving with purpose.
Right. And we have, we go out and we help, Mitch Osborne. We help him when he gets called out to do, to go search for stuff.
And he was Alaska, a federal. He was federal, right?
He was federal.
So he was a marine biologist for Fish and Wildlife. Thousands and thousands of dives. Right. Excellent instructor, trained us on a lot of things.
Yeah.
But he's into the scientific diving. That's what he did for a living.
Right.
So here's a guy that's done that for, 25, 30 years. And now he's able to train students in how to do that with that expertise, kind of like Mike Berry did with UCI.
And you see kind of cool things. Like I remember that one time when you went out with Mitch and you guys were doing a survey of the fish. And so you got to lay in the river and video fish, and it was really cool because you were able to watch the.
Well, I think we were looking at some grayling, maybe.
Or grayling,
but I think that was for a wildlife photographer. But Mitch does all kinds of stuff. Like they'll grid off an area where they're gonna put piles in for a dock or something, and they'll move the starfish out of the way. So that, or they'll look at populations under the water and they'll study them and they'll study conditions generally.
Or they'll go up and they'll swim with the polar bears and do research up there.
Yeah, Mitch goes and swims with freaking polar bears.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I wanted to do was there was a stern wheeler in the Chena that went down by the Carlson Center. And part of that frame of that hull is supposed to still be there.
Right.
And so I want to grid that off. And see if we can excavate it like an archaeologist, maybe find some cool stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know. It may have already been picked through, but it'd be cool to find out.
Yeah.
The scientific diving program, which is what certifies all your marine biologists, is AAUS, and it's a phenomenal program. And it's kind of outside of our training agency, being PADI certified.
And another thing is, when you go down to do research on that, you never know what has been stopped by the river. So you might find some cool things that were, that had gotten blocked from going down on the, where the stern wheeler's at. Stuff might have gotten stuck there. You might find something that
some people have claimed to pull out coffee from old bathtubs that were on the or wood stoves.
And so there's always the adventure is just so much more than fish. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it can be. Cool. It can be. And there are other things too that might take us outside of our training. So we want to do more salvage work or some kind of commercial work. Yes. Now that's not in the realm of recreational diving. Now you're getting paid to be a salvage diver, and that's a whole nother realm. But that training's available.
It still goes beyond that recreational
it goes beyond
diving. It goes into we're doing work.
One of the things we did with Mitch, and it was great, is we cut a hole in the Tanana River, and Mitch had a whole system of how to dive under the ice in 2 knots of current in zero viz, looking for a turbine that the previous year had fallen off a barge. And we're doing a survey of the bottom to see if there's sonar.
And we got to be part of that.
And we got to be part of that. Cool. We were only surface support, but we got to be part of that. And that kind of showed us another realm of what's possible or another way we can take our diving. So I would tell you that if you dove a few times, went to Hawaii, saw some cool stuff, some manta rays, maybe did their Jack's Diving Lockers pelagic magic.
That's amazing.
Phenomenal dive. or did all that diving in Hawaii, and then
Yeah.
you came back and you haven't been back, and now you're looking at selling your dive gear. Well, stop for a minute. Stop for a minute and say, well, what would make this interesting again?
Right.
Do I need a little adventure in my life? That's a big selling point for me.
Yeah.
I want some adventure in my life. And so there's other things too that you can do, like decompression diving, deep diving, really deep, long dives. We have a buddy that
cave diving.
does that.
Yeah,
cave diving.
I mean, or even just if not cave diving, you know, like the cavern. Diving cavern.
See, we're gonna go
get
cavern certified and get intro to cave. But that's going to be our next step. We're really looking forward to that. We're really pumped about it. But it was not considered part of recreational diving necessarily. It's only been recently that many of the dive agencies have certified divers to do this kind of stuff. It's a little bit riskier, but the training is very intense and helps you mitigate that risk and makes it so it's not that much riskier than maybe a recreational dive because you have the additional training.
Exactly.
Now, if you don't have that training, don't do any of this stuff we're talking about, because I guarantee you will get yourself in trouble. Everyone thinks it can't happen to them. Well, it happens to them.
Until it does,
And then you got somebody like Ed Sorensen going and removing your carcass from a cave, or you got someone like Mike Berry going down to retrieve your carcass for your family because you decided to do something that you weren't trained to do. So if you're looking for this adventure, please get the training.
And I think that, you know, just to wrap this up, I think that the more training you get, the better diver you become, because you learn more. And whether it's something little or something huge, every time we do more training, we learn to be better at diving, and so it makes us a better
100%.
diver.
Like I was saying with my IDC, took my diving up to here.
Yeah.
UCI took my diving up to here. Public safety diving. Why? Because we're diving in new conditions.
Exactly. Yeah.
That we would never even go in the water before.
Right. So,
if we had those conditions. So you add a tool to your toolbox. Every time you take another course.
That's right.
Add another tool to your toolbox.
And
so now when you're done, you have one of those snap-on toolboxes, a $20,000 toolbox instead of the little.
Yeah.
You know, and with that toolbox, you can dive safer, you can dive better. So if you decide that you want to take your training to another level, that you want some adventure in your life, take your diving to the next level by getting more training. Take it in a direction that interests you. Make sure you don't watch YouTube and consider that training. It's not, I promise you. I promise you, we'd have been in trouble a million times on any of our public safety dives had we not had the training. And not only the PADI public safety diver course, but the UCI training, the master UCI training, the UFEF training, all this other training that we've received to do this kind of work has, in one respect or another, it probably saved us from a bad situation more times than not. And also has taken our dive skills to another level. So
definitely.
Get that training. If you're in the Fairbanks area, call Hardcore Divers. We can take you in that direction. We have the ability to certify you to go in some of these directions. So there's no need to stop diving if you can't go to Hawaii, if you can't go to the Caribbean. You can dive where you're at. Just get trained, get the skills to do those more adventurous types of dives. Yeah? Well, thanks for joining us for Training Talk, and we'll see you next time.